Steve Jobs often receives the lion's share of credit for the incredible success of Apple, and justifiably so. However, behind every great company is a team of visionaries. And in Apple's case, one of its unsung heroes is Steve Wozniak. While Jobs is celebrated for his innovation in business and marketing, it was Wozniak who built the computers that gave Apple its early footing. Yet, despite his immense contribution, Wozniak's decision to leave Apple in 1985 has largely remained under the radar. In this video, we dive deep into the untold story of why Wozniak walked away from the company he helped create. Was it a matter of creative differences? A personal choice to step out of the spotlight? Or did Apple's changing direction simply no longer align with his values? Join us as we explore the events that led to Wozniak's departure and what happened afterward. This is a story of innovation, passion, and the very essence of what makes a company thrive, or fail. 1. The early days. Steve Wozniak lays the foundation for Apple. In the early days of Apple, Steve Wozniak was the driving force behind the company's first major products. Starting with the Apple I. As the mastermind behind the design and construction of the Apple I, Wozniak created a computer that was ahead of its time, with the ability to connect to peripherals like keyboards and television sets. However, it was the Apple II that truly cemented his legacy. Wozniak's approach to the Apple II was driven more by passion for technology than by a desire for profit. He didn't initially consider monetizing the product but focused on creating a machine that could offer powerful features at a lower cost than competitors. The Apple II became an instant success, and Wozniak's design choices played a significant role in its impact. One of the most groundbreaking features was its 8 expansion slots, which allowed users to easily add new components and upgrades. This feature set the Apple II apart from other computers on the market, which typically relied on a limited number of expansion options. Wozniak's careful attention to cost optimization also helped make the Apple II more affordable while still delivering exceptional performance. The Apple II's success laid the foundation for Apple's future and demonstrated Wozniak's unique approach to innovation, creating products that were both advanced and accessible to the wider public. 2. The clash. Wozniak versus Jobs. The development of the Apple II highlighted a fundamental philosophical clash between Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. While Wozniak championed the idea of a flexible, open system that encouraged user creativity, Jobs sought to impose restrictions to create a more controlled, streamlined product. Wozniak believed that expanding the capabilities of the Apple II, including its 8 expansion slots, would allow users to modify and enhance the computer to suit their needs. A vision that aligned with his passion for fostering innovation and open-source thinking. For Wozniak, the key to success was offering as much freedom as possible to the end user, empowering them to personalize their experience. However, Jobs had a different perspective. He was focused on making Apple products more accessible and less complicated for the average consumer. Believing that limiting the system's expandability would help achieve this, Jobs pushed for a version of the Apple II with fewer expansion slots, arguing that most users didn't need such flexibility. This move, in Wozniak's eyes, was a significant departure from the spirit of innovation that had driven the company's success. The disagreement over the Apple II's design encapsulated their contrasting views. Wozniak valued openness and the potential for users to experiment and create, while Jobs aimed to build a more controlled, cohesive product. This tension ultimately left Wozniak frustrated, as he felt that Jobs was limiting the very qualities that had made Apple unique. 3. Bigger conflicts. The Apple III and mistakes. The development of the Apple III marked a significant turning point in the growing tension between Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. Jobs insisted on a radical design for the Apple III, demanding that the computer be fanless and have an aluminum case to help dissipate heat. While this aesthetic and design approach seemed innovative, it created serious technical problems that would later haunt the product. Wozniak, who was heavily involved in the engineering process, recognized the potential flaws early on. He understood that the fanless design could lead to overheating and that the aluminum case required careful engineering to prevent issues with heat dissipation. He also warned that the motherboard size was too small to accommodate all the necessary components, leading to potential malfunctions. Despite Wozniak's concerns, Jobs pushed for the Apple III to be released according to a strict timeline. The company was under pressure to launch the product, so these critical issues were not fully addressed before production. As a result, the Apple III faced numerous hardware problems, including overheating, malfunctioning chips, and unreliable components. Even the solution Apple provided for fixing dislodged chips, simply tilting the computer and dropping it, was both impractical and embarrassing. These issues tarnished the Apple III's reputation and damaged Apple's brand, leading to a massive setback. Wozniak's early warnings had proven right, but Jobs' insistence on pushing forward with a flawed design marked another point of conflict between the two, further driving a wedge in their professional relationship. 4. The impact of the accident and time away. In 1981, Steve Wozniak's life was forever changed by a tragic plane crash that left him with severe injuries, including head trauma and temporary amnesia. This accident forced him to take a 2-year leave from Apple, during which time the company, and especially its flagship project, the Macintosh, continued to evolve without him. During his absence, Steve Jobs took full control of the Macintosh's development, and significant changes were made to the design and philosophy of the project. When Wozniak returned to Apple in 1983, he was eager to contribute to the development of the Macintosh, but he quickly realized that the project had taken a new direction under Jobs' leadership. Jobs had shifted the design focus from an open, customizable system to a more closed, proprietary one. The Macintosh now featured a completely enclosed system, where users couldn't easily upgrade or modify the machine. This shift in philosophy, from the open and flexible approach that Wozniak had championed with the Apple I and II, to a more restrictive and controlled design, left Wozniak disillusioned. While the Macintosh had potential, Wozniak felt that it no longer embodied the ideals that had made Apple's early products so successful. He found himself increasingly disconnected from the company's new direction, as Jobs pushed for more control over the hardware and software. This was a turning point that further highlighted the growing divide between Wozniak's vision of technology and Jobs' more closed, commercialized approach. 5. The Macintosh and unwanted changes. As the Macintosh project evolved under Steve Jobs' direction, Steve Wozniak became increasingly dissatisfied with the changes being implemented, particularly the fanless cooling system and the closed design. Wozniak, who had always championed an open and flexible approach to technology, found the Macintosh's tightly controlled design philosophy to be a sharp contrast to his own values. In his early work with Apple, Wozniak focused on creating products that encouraged user modification and experimentation, making them customizable and adaptable. However, the Macintosh was designed with strict limitations in mind. Users could no longer easily upgrade or alter the machine, which was a significant departure from the principles that had driven Apple's success in its early years. The shift from an open-source philosophy to a closed approach, championed by Jobs, left Wozniak frustrated. He believed that restricting user access to the machine's inner workings stifled creativity and innovation. The decision to design a sealed system, which required a special screwdriver to open, felt like a step backward, especially for someone who believed in giving users the freedom to tinker and improve upon the technology. As the Macintosh continued to struggle in the market, Wozniak began to realize that it wasn't living up to the expectations set by the Apple I and II. Despite its innovative interface, the Macintosh failed to generate enough revenue to sustain Apple's financial health. The company's reliance on the Macintosh, which was not yet profitable, made it clear to Wozniak that the direction Jobs had taken was not working. This further deepened Wozniak's disillusionment with the company and the product that once held so much promise. 6. Disappointment and the decision to leave Apple. By 1985, Steve Wozniak's frustration with Apple had reached its peak. As the company grew and evolved, Wozniak felt increasingly alienated, particularly due to Steve Jobs' leadership decisions. One of the most significant sources of tension was the exclusion of the Apple II team from key events and meetings. Despite the Apple II being responsible for the company's early success, Wozniak, who had poured his heart and soul into the development of the Apple I and II, felt disrespected and overlooked as Apple focused more on the Macintosh project. The sense of camaraderie and innovation that had once defined Apple was no longer present, replaced by a more corporate, top-down approach under Jobs' leadership. Ultimately, Wozniak decided to leave the company in 1985. His decision wasn't solely based on the company's shift in direction, but also on the emotional toll it had taken on him. He realized that Apple had lost the creative spirit that had initially inspired him to build the company. The company's increasing complexity, along with Jobs' authoritarian management style, made it difficult for Wozniak to continue working in an environment that no longer aligned with his values. For Wozniak, the joy of building and innovating had been replaced by corporate politics and infighting. And this disconnect led him to step away from Apple for good. His departure marked the end of an era for the company, and it signified his decision to prioritize his personal happiness and creativity over the company's future path. 7. Life after leaving Apple. After leaving Apple in 1985, Steve Wozniak embarked on a new journey that was a stark contrast to his former life at the company. One of his first ventures was founding CL9, a company that created the world's first programmable universal remote control. This project allowed Wozniak to continue his passion for technology and innovation, but with a focus on practical, user-friendly solutions that empowered individuals. CL9 became a symbol of Wozniak's philosophy of making technology accessible and open for users to personalize. Much like his early work at Apple, in addition to his entrepreneurial pursuits, Wozniak fulfilled a lifelong dream of becoming an educator. He began teaching technology to students, sharing his knowledge and love for innovation with the younger generation. Wozniak taught students ranging from 5th to 9th grade, passing on his expertise in a way that was far removed from the corporate world of Apple. This shift toward education highlighted his desire to inspire and nurture creativity in others, rather than simply profit from his inventions. Wozniak's post-Apple career stands in stark contrast to that of Steve Jobs, who remained deeply focused on Apple's closed, highly controlled ecosystem. While Jobs continued to push boundaries within a corporate framework, Wozniak sought creative freedom, striving to help others explore and build upon technology in an open and collaborative manner. This divergence in their career paths further illustrates the philosophical divide that ultimately led to Wozniak's departure from Apple and his search for a more fulfilling, independent path. Conclusion. In conclusion, Steve Wozniak's departure from Apple was driven by a combination of personal and philosophical differences with Steve Jobs, particularly regarding the company's evolving direction. From his dissatisfaction with the shift toward a more closed and controlled product design to the exclusion of the Apple II team, Wozniak felt disconnected from the very company he helped build. His decision to leave opened the door to new ventures, like founding CL9 and pursuing his passion for education, which allowed him to remain true to his values of creativity and openness. While Apple went on to achieve unprecedented success under Jobs, Wozniak's legacy continues to inspire those who value innovation and the freedom to explore technology. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more insightful content on the fascinating history of Apple and its creators.